Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. And today I want to talk to you about one of the topics that's so close to my heart. And the topic is being greater than the circumstances that surround us. And this is one of the skills that I call it. And of course, you may experience this as something one time, or maybe you experience it as something from the past. But this is what I'm thinking more and more what's required for us to be transitioning to the exact situation or the life that we want to, making the impact we want to, having amazing relationships. All of this require this one skill, which is being greater than the circumstances. And I will define for you what that is. I will also give you several of the examples from my own experience and from my clients so that you can see which one is which, because I see that we tend to be usually, when it comes to our circumstances, we tend to have three approaches. I like to divide into three categories, and then you can see where you are, and then you can also see how you could get to the side that you really want to, and then get to the transitioning that really suits your situation, right? So first, let's define what I mean when I say being greater than the circumstances, right? So, circumstance obviously is the situation where we live, the job that we do, the salaries that we have, or the the family that we have. All of this are circumstances that surround us. Coworkers, the boss, all of these are our circumstances, right? And oftentimes I have seen, and I have been also one of them for as long as I remember until I decided to change, we tend to have three ways to interact with those circumstances, especially when it comes to our work, especially when it comes to making changes. So we have the circumstance, maybe even the competition, the economy, the current state of affairs. These are all circumstances, right? And the way that we tend to have three approaches to how we interact with that circumstance, right? So one is typically and very often that I coach my clients on is where we try to not drown, where we survive, where we try to make the best of the situation, even though we're not really where we want to be or we're not really doing the things or whatever it is. So, this is what I call it as the survival approach, where we tend to survive our circumstances. So, we get overwhelmed at work, we tend to basically try our best to do the work at the same time try not to burn out, or maybe we're even burned out, but we tend to continue doing it because we feel like that's how it is, this is how it should be, this is like I don't really have any other option, right? So this is the way we interact with those circumstances. We just keep feeling like we are under their power, right? So we feel like our job dictates our emotions. We feel like our circumstances dictate our emotions. We feel we don't have time for the things that we want to. We don't really want to be doing the job, but we can't do anything else. So we believe basically we don't have any other option but to continue doing it. This is when we approach circumstances from a survival perspective. Now, the next stage that many of us may go is where we feel good about our jobs, where we feel, yes, I'm progressing in the career, I'm doing the things. Maybe there are certain things that are not working, but I'm fairly good at where my circumstances are. I'm also feeling good. Maybe I'm tired some of the times, but I'm not really I can't say that I'm drowning or I can say I'm surviving, right? But I'm just feeling like this is all clear. This is where I'm going. And this is the place that I call it is like the neutral space or maybe the positive space approach with the circumstances. So we have figured out how to navigate within our work environment. We have figured out how to have our stability, how to have our family. And this is all very comfortable and nice. And we feel like life is good, right? So this is the positive side or neutral or positive sides of interacting with the circumstances. Now, the part that I'm suggesting for you to consider is the part that is greater than the circumstances. This is the skill that I'm suggesting for us to build. And here I will explain why we need that skill. So the greater being greater than the circumstances is usually where no matter what the life throws at us, no matter what the work throws at us, or no matter what challenges come up, we somehow trust that we can handle it and we keep going bigger to the fullest or to the biggest impact that we want to, or to the intense way of doing things, or to the even like challenging ourselves to see what else I'm capable of, and let me just go and find out and then go for those type of situations, because we're not afraid of those challenges, because we're not afraid of setbacks, we're not afraid of failures, we're not afraid of our emotions basically, and therefore we're just feeling greater or bigger than the circumstances where we are, so that we are then on purpose creating new, bigger, or other circumstances that we have. This is if we look at it very conceptually, right? So I just wanted to give you an overview of how we may interact with the circumstances that we have around us. Now, there is obviously no right or wrong way of interacting with the circumstances that we have around us, except that when we are in the survival mode, why being greater than the circumstance skill is important is because when we are so much in the survival mode, we tend to then suffer a lot, and that has so much toll on our emotional health, on our mental health. We tend to go burnout. We tend to not be able to take care of ourselves or our loved ones, right? So we tend to not like our jobs. And a lot of this problems start occurring if we continue being in the survival mode. And therefore, the skill of being greater than the circumstances comes so much in handy. And the way that we can use this skill of being greater than the circumstances is to understand how we have the power to decide, to perceive, to interact with the circumstances in whichever way we want to, even though oftentimes we don't believe that we can, right? But this is the key, you all, is that as long as we don't believe that we can be greater than the circumstances in which we are currently, then we continue feeling like the circumstance dictate our emotional state, circumstance dictate what we can and cannot do, and therefore we continue limiting ourselves or being just satisfied with whatever we have at the thriving level or at the positive level, the one that I talked about, even though maybe we have desires that go a lot beyond that positive level. Maybe our desires go beyond that survival level, right? So therefore, the skill of being greater than the circumstance becomes so much useful, and not only like it becomes so essential that we learn how to do that or recognize how we have been doing that in the past as well. And here are the examples of humanitarians who tell me that they have already this skill, they have used it in the past, they know how to do it. Maybe they haven't really been doing this consciously, but they know, many of them know how to do this. So one of my clients told me that when she wanted to go first abroad, I think she got an offer to go to Cambodia, and she wanted to go there, and then her parents were all against it, right? So her circumstance, in other words, were against her going to this mission. And at the time, she was very afraid how her parents will take it, or how they will they will be worried, and all of these things, right? Which are very human, natural ways that we don't want to upset our parents. We don't want to make them worry, obviously. And these are the circumstances in which she is. And then in that moment, it would have been and then she was also very afraid that she could go there, and she was very young, and she didn't know how the environment will be, how she will be able to start a work, and therefore she just decided that she will go there anyway because she had this gut feeling of she really wants to go. right? Another similar story from another colleague and client, and she was telling me that she went to the war when the war was in the very active phase in South Sudan, another one in Syria, that they decided, like, they have very similar stories of going there and doing this work they really wanted to do because they really wanted to have this experience of being international staff and doing this work, even though there were lots of dangers, right? The physical safety was not secure. And this is the circumstance, right? The physical environment was not secure. This is a circumstance. Yet they were able to go there anyway because of their passion for it, but also because of trusting that the systems in place or the security measures in place somehow will get them the security they need to be performing their job, right? So these are the moments when we can clearly see that we have the circumstance that says that it's physically dangerous. We have the circumstance that says your parents are not supporting you, or we have also clients who tell me that their spouses were against it, right? But they had this feeling and calling or passion or the desire, or maybe for other reasons, right? It doesn't matter, but we just believe that we can do this. And then we went and did this, is like being greater than our circumstances, right? And we can even do this when we're not even having any professional experience or any like even we don't really know much about the world, we can still do this. And I feel like we have this natural capacity to do this. And one of the examples that I often talk about is my own experience of going for the scholarship, for German scholarship, right? That I was talking about recently in my post as well, where I had no clue that this scholarship would work. I had, if anything, all the reasons why this wouldn't work, right? So I had all the reasons that told me it wouldn't work because I don't speak the level of German at the level they required. I don't come from the background they required. I I'm like studying in one of the cities where German was not even taught, right? So, like, all the circumstantial evidence suggested that I wouldn't get the scholarship. Yet I did my best. I learned as much as I could. I went all the way. I tried my best. I did a lot of the find and a lot of the resources to go to the location where the exam was being held. And as long as I did all of my best with my best intentions of believing what if it was possible, or even if I don't believe, just like what if it was possible, and then just keep going for it, that made me then being greater than my circumstances, right? So if I allowed or if I listened to my circumstance of this is possible, this is in no way possible, are you kidding yourself, right? If I allowed to my circumstance dictate my situation at the time, then I would have never gotten my scholarship. And who knows how my life turned could have turned out differently than it has now that I'm very happy about. So you can see that when we are being greater than the circumstances that we surround ourselves, and we seem to have very like natural inclination and natural talent and natural like a gut feeling or intuition, whichever the way you call it, like typically tend to have these within us. We typically have the skill to go all in and go for it. Yet, oftentimes, we are the ones who then talk ourselves out of it, right? Especially later in life, where we have the reasoning that says we should be wiser than before, or we should know better. We should be very rational. We can't be just intuitive and all of this. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be rational in no way, right? But I'm just wanting you to see that we have the natural innate capacity in so many clients that I talk to. They have this capacity to be greater than their circumstances, their capacity to be greater than their fears. Yet, when it comes to transitioning now, when it comes to transitioning to like circumstances that are better than the one that we have now, circumstances that are bigger than the one that we have now. When we go transitioning that way, we have a lot of reasoning for why it won't work. We have a lot of reasoning why we just derail ourselves, and therefore we don't really go for the circumstances that we really want to have, right? So circumstances like finally living with our family members, or excuse me, or earning the money that is bigger than the one that we are having, or making the impact that is bigger and more, um, excuse me, more than we're having. We don't tend to go typically as humanitarians. I have noticed that we don't typically go for bigger transitioning than we have currently because of a lot of our reasoning that says we can't basically do it, or we can't expect that anymore because of the economy, because of the competition. As you can see, that all of these reasons we are using, where we are allowing the circumstance that we currently have, we're allowing that circumstance to dictate what we can and cannot do, right? Another way that we often use circumstances where we feel like we are under the influence of the circumstances instead of being greater than our circumstances is when we continue fighting the systems that we don't like, or fight, like resisting, even though we don't fight, but resisting, right? Resisting meaning that we keep complaining about it, we keep being frustrated and disappointed about it. We don't really do anything because we don't believe that it can be changed, but we just keep feeling frustrated under it. And that's how we allow that system, allow that bureaucracy, or allow that thing that we don't like influence the way we feel. And that's how we become surviving of that circumstances instead of being greater than that circumstance, meaning that we never then decide to what to do with those circumstances that we keep using as a way to feel bad about what's going on, to feel bad about ourselves or our jobs. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but um, I would like for you to understand what would be the reason for keep doing it. If you are not fighting it, if you are not really doing something with those emotions, then you just keep producing those emotions, and those emotions will just continue harming you instead of being useful for a sustainable change, right? So therefore, as you can see, that we also have that tendency to be under the power of those systems, that the very thing that we don't want to be under the power of, yet we continue being because we feel like we don't have other options. And again, that's how we continue being less, or we continue not to use our power of being greater than our circumstances. We don't use that because we don't believe that we can do it. We don't believe that it's in our control. We don't believe that we are in charge of this, but we just continue suffering under it. Now, let's say that you have now like seen how we can be under the influence of, or under the powers of the things that we don't want to be, or under the powers of the circumstances that we don't want to be, and we want to do something about it. Here are the reasons, like the main reasons why, coming back to our innate capacity to being greater than our circumstances, here are the main reasons why that would be so useful, is because it's our innate capacity, and we can actually develop this even further. And if we develop it, then we always feel like we have options. We always feel like we know what we're doing and where we're going, or we are ready to figure out. And therefore, we're willing to go for bigger other things that creates more freedom, instead of keep feeling constrained within our circumstances that we believe we can't really change, right? So therefore, that would be the first reason why to do it, to give ourselves a lot more options. Another reason why we do that is because then the more we do it, the better we get, and the bigger our life somehow is, meaning that we no longer need to like tiptoeing around or being busy with things that we don't really want to be busy with. We can not be frustrated at things that we don't really like. We know we can change. We don't really go into those type of problem solving, but we go into more the problem solving of what's actually useful and can be changed, or what's actually useful for other people that we want to create impact for, and we really feel like genuinely, truly fulfilled to be making that difference. And therefore, we even feel like we're so much more in our living the life in the way that we meant to, instead of just feeling like we're solving the problem that no one cares about, or we are trying to do things that don't make any sense, or all of these things, right? So therefore, I think this would be another reason why learning this, or like generating this innate capacity that we have to be greater than the circumstances and go exactly for the transitioning we want, or even bigger. And how can we do that? Now, here is the thing: is as I said, this is an innate um, capacity that we have, yet I think we somewhere along the line of continuing doing our work, or continuing following our mundane or like routine, or going from one thing to another, continuing doing that type of lifestyle, or a comfort lifestyle, some of us call it. When we do that, we may not have practiced it a lot. We may have forgotten how it looks like, or we may have forgotten that we're actually good at doing it. And therefore, here are the ways that you can start like exploring for yourself how you can be greater than your circumstances. So one of the granular way you can do that, removing all the frustrations from your life currently where you are that drains you emotionally, removing those by intentionally looking at why you keep reacting to the situations around you the way you are reacting currently. This is one of the biggest and yet granular way you can start understanding you are bigger than your circumstances. You are more powerful than your circumstances, right? So the way that you can do that is, why do you keep feeling frustrated? Why do you allow that circumstance to make you feel this way all of this time, knowing that this won't change, this circumstance won't change, knowing that you are not going to fight or do anything about it? Then why keep being frustrated, right? So this is just something that habitual that it becomes for many of us, and therefore we can start showing to ourselves that we're actually greater than our circumstances currently, and we can continue still doing the thing that we want within our current environment, whether it's in the humanitarian sector where you work now, or where somewhere else, within the circumstances that we have. How do we want to feel the way we want to, so that we can make the impact we want? This is one of the best and biggest way you can start showing to yourself and feeling greater than your circumstances. Another amazing way that you can practice it, by being in charge of your time, by being in charge of your energy. The more you practice showing how you are managing your time, how you're managing your energy, where it's being drained, where you are preventing it from being drained, when you become so conscious and intentional of those actions, of those your way of your way of living life, then you start feeling like you are greater than their circumstances. And once you start figuring out that you are in charge of your time, your energy, your emotional state, and you decide how you feel about whatever your circumstances, then you start feeling like, oh my God, then I can do anything I want, right? That was my experience as I was getting ready for transitioning, is I realized after having managed my time, my energy, my emotional state, and then as soon as I realized that it's not the circumstances that make me feel in a certain way, but it's me who feels in a certain way in interaction with those circumstances, then I felt so powerful to then say, then I go for whatever I want to, the exact thing that I want to, right? And that's how I transitioned to from humanitarian to doing my coaching work and helping other people see and recognize that we actually have the capacity to be bigger or greater than our circumstances at any given time, no matter what the circumstances is. And I love that we have that authority and power, each of us, to then decide what to do with our circumstances, right? So therefore, it no longer is about who got educated where or who got raised where, but rather how are we interacting with our circumstances currently? Do we want to continue interacting that way where we survive or we barely come to the next month, or we decide how we want to interact with it, whether we allow them to be powerful or not. And if not, then how are we going to decide to move forward to exactly making the impact the way we want to making the money, to making relationships, to creating families, to being with our loved ones. These are the life choices that are available if we learn the skill of being greater than our circumstances. So, my dears, I would love to help you learn the skill or generate or reignite your capacity that you already have, and then decide how to go for the transitioning that you want to, so you no longer choose transitioning from what you can and cannot do, but rather what is it exactly that you're wanting and how you're going to make that happen, or how you're going to pursue this, relying on the skill of being greater than your circumstances. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you very soon.